everybody, I am going to show you how to make a pair of matching handles to go on this really cool form. They're going to have handles on either end, and I'm going to show you the basics of how I like to create these decorative, they're also functional, but quite decorative sculptural handles on the ends. So I'm going to break it down for you step by step and show you how to attach. So hopefully you can see where my hands are working here. I've got a bucket of water, which you'll need. I've got some really well wedged up clay. So whenever you're working with pulling handles, it's important to use good clay. Don't just take scrap. It should match the clay of the piece that you're attaching it to. This one went in a bag that had some red clay on it, so I'm going to give it a little wedge to kind of distribute that red clay in. The key when you're working in a matched set is to do everything from one piece of clay. So I grabbed a handful like that. I'm gonna kind of beat it into a more uniform shape, and then I'm gonna divide it in half. So now I'm starting with two halves of the same clay, and I'm gonna do everything step by step by step. So I'll get up close to the camera so you can see. First thing I wanna do is kind of compress the end and then roll it between my hands. And it's not just the camera angle. The upper parts of my hands, the thumb side of my hands, are spread apart more than the bottom. So I'm producing this tapered plug of clay. Don't worry if it doesn't look beautiful and perfect. We're going to be pulling this handle. It just needs to get a nice taper on it like that. Then before I do anything else, same thing on the other handle side. It's really helpful to be able to kind of bop the end of it and get it back flat again. So there's the other. I'm going to check them, see if they look uniform, and they're pretty good. I like my handles to be flatter and strappier, so the next step is throwing it down on the table. And then we get to pulling. So I'm going to position this like this. You can't really see my bucket of water, but I'm going to be dipping my hand in the water. My left hand, people get really confused about how to place the plug of clay in their hand. So your palm is facing down, your fingers curl back towards your hand. You place the plug of clay against the end of your index finger like so, and then just kind of clamp it in place with your thumb. This way I only need about 1/2 inch of the clay to grab, and I don't have to have a lot of extra up there. I can just kind of hold it by the end and I'm really securely around it. Now I'm going to wet my hand and extend this clay. So I'm making kind of a oval shape with my fingers and thumb, and I'm grabbing it up at the top and sliding down. You don't want to hesitate along the way. You just want to go off the bottom. And that's enough length. I've got a little bit of a ridge down the middle because I make a little bit of a point between the tip of my index finger and the side of my thumb that creates that little ridge. So I've got that. It doesn't need any particular shape because it's going to attach and then get formed into a loop. So I'm just going to lay it flat on the table and pull the second handle. Same thing, palm down, fingers back, clamp it with your thumb. If at any point you feel like you're sticking to the clay, just get more water from your bucket. This is a messy operation. It's okay. And I'm going to compare it to my other handle. And they are siblings, not twins, but I'm okay with that. They're close enough and I can make it work. So that's the pulling step. It's quite fun. It takes practice. So if you really want to get good at making handles that match well enough that you can have the two sides symmetrical, just make yourself a whole bunch of plugs and pull one after the other after the other. You can always wedge it back up. You'll be amazed at how that practice will pay off. So let me show you also how to attach. So I'm going to grab a needle tool to cut the end off and a scratcher tool to roughen up where I'm going to be putting it. And I'm going to try to get everything in the camera clearly enough for you. All right, so scratcher tool, needle tool. And I want to cut the end of the handle, which probably should bring the camera a little closer. Okay, if that didn't cause seasickness, we're all good. So I need to cut the end of the handle, and I always cut it on a curve because I'm used to attaching things to rounded surfaces. This is actually fairly flat, so I don't have to worry as much about a big sharp curve, but a little bit of curve is actually going to help it adhere at the corners. So I'm going to hold my needle tool vertically and cut off on a little bit of a curve. And I'm going to recut this one because it's a lot shorter. It was a 1/4 of an inch shorter. So I'm going to cut them so that they're the same. The more you can have these things be the same size, the better. Okay, now I'm going to show you how I'm going to prep the surface of the pot. So right on the end here is where we're going to attach. I'm going to take my scoring tool and I'm going to decide where it's going on. And I think it's going to attach at the top right near the rim. And I want to roughen up the entire area where that handle is going to attach. And then I'll also attach at the bottom here. So it's going to make a fairly tight loop. And I'm deciding that before I even start attaching. I'm going to take a little bit of slip from my throwing bucket and add that to kind of sticky up the juncture there. And now I'm going to set that down. Actually, I'll do the other side too. You always want to do everything to the other side that you did to the first side. That's how you can get it to match as well as possible. If you go through all the steps and then try to do all the steps on the other one, the chances of getting it all to match up are so much smaller, because you can always come in and kind of adjust and correct along the way. Now I'll show you how I'm dealing with the handles. So I'm picking them up by their tail end, holding with really flat fingers, and I like to hammer on that cut surface and flare it out just a little bit. So I'm using the tip of my finger and kind of hammering on it. Then I'm going to scratch it. This is fresh and soft, so I'm not going to really, maybe a little touch of slip, but not much. You don't want it sliding around. And then hopefully you can see, let's scoot this back just a little bit. I'm going to put my hand inside the pot, place my handle, and give it what I call a jiggle push. So I press it and jiggle it at the same time. And that kind of forces the air out of the seam. Switch hands and get kind of the left side of it. And then I'm just going to let it hang. It's on there at this point. And so I can turn this thing around and deal with the other handle. So hammering out this end. Going to give it the scoring treatment. And then I'm going to flip this board around. So I have access to this side. Hand inside, jiggle push that handle on there. Okay, so I'm going to pick it up so you can see what I have. We've got 2 handles hanging off the pot. Now I need to create the loop that I want. And so what I'm going to do is kneel down and show you how I work at the edge of the table. I'm going to grab my scratching tool, and I want to create a fairly tight loop where it comes out and back into the pot. You're not going to be putting your hand inside the loop. It's really like the whole loop is the handle. So I'm going to figure out kind of where I want it. And that looks pretty good to me. And I'm going to take the bent part there and scratch the back of it so that it'll mesh with the part that I already scratched on the pot. I'm going to take the end of my thumb and press it home really hard and then tear off the extra. So that's the end of the handle. Then I'm going to take the other sides of the where I tore off and just kind of blend those down. I'll show you what that looks like. I'm going to do the exact same thing on the other side, or at least as exact as I can get it. So figure out where I want it to loop in. They look fairly similar. Pull it back, scratch the back of it. Align that scratch part with, yeah, I've got my loops about the same size. I'm aligning that scratch part with the scratch part on the pot, pressing it home with my thumb, and then tearing off the extra. And I'm going to just blend that to the side, blend that to the side. And I'm just doing that with one little stroke of my hand. I don't want to overthink it. So that's what I have so far. Both of those handles look super droopy and sad. So this is where we come in and take a damp finger, stick it inside that loop and kind of perk it up. Just bring that loop up higher. And then take the heel of our hand and kind of lift that shape. And to me, of course I did that all off screen, sorry about that. I lifted like that with a little tickle underneath and then I pushed it up a little bit. I'll show you better on this side. All right, so you see how it's really droopy. Stick a finger inside, lift it up. It's a damp finger. And then push upward like that. And now I've got non-droopy handles that match pretty well and they're stuck on there. The thing to do at this point in any handle making process is walk away, let things stiffen up for a little while, and then you come back and mess with smoothing in any seams or anything that you want to do. If you work on them too much when they're dead wet like this, it's just like messing with your pots when you take them off the wheel too soon. Just let it have a chance to get more towards leather hard, and then you can come do the final refinements. So thanks for your attention on that. I hope you enjoy making this form, and I think the handles really add a lot. But tell me what you think, leave a comment, and enjoy the project. Thank you.